From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher, and their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher, and our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Scripchuk. Their mission: to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Welcome to the Garage Heroes in Training podcast. I'm going to be one of the hosts for this episode, and I'm the only one here right now. So I'm Bill. Vicky may come in later. We have a guest. We met her at the NJMP event with GridLife last year and hit that off. She was out there competing in GLTC after winning a scholarship, and she's also one of the GridLife instructors. I think she may be the lead instructor. We'll find out. And apparently we just found out we're going to be spending a lot of time together. I'm going to be looking at her taillights at the One Lap of America this year. And with that, we'd like to welcome to the podcast Lisa Keys. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Not a problem. We've been playing podcast tag for a couple of weeks, and we finally got it together, so that's a good thing.
Finally narrowed down time.
Life gets in the way, especially when apparently both of us are replacing motors in a race car. That tends to make life a little more complicated.
Yes, it does.
It does. So I like to do podcasts. I like to talk about racing. I even get stuck doing the introductions for most of the episodes because nobody else will do them, but I'm not very good at them. So just in case, could you give an introduction to the people who aren't already friends with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Lisa. Like as mentioned, I am with GridLife as far as instructor. I actually do lead instruct on some of the events. I'll be lead instructor for this upcoming one at CMP the weekend. So I think this is going to drop well after that. But the weekend,
you did a great job.
30th.
It was fantastic. Yeah. It was amazing.
So yeah, I mean, basically, I've kind of came up through the GridLife DE program. My first ever race that I did on track was with GridLife at Road Atlanta about 5 years ago, back when they were still doing GridLife at Road Atlanta. So I was lucky for that. I had just hopped in this little red Civic that was my boyfriend's at the time. Not really any mods, had a B16 swap. Other than that, it was essentially stock. I had intended on driving my Evo for that event, but as Evos do, the motor blew up beforehand.
That's a first time.
Yeah. So I ended up co-driving the Civic and instantly fell in love with it. And really it was serendipitous because that was a much better car for me to do a first ever event on, at especially Road Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sad about that.
Yeah, I can imagine first time racing at Road Atlanta. Not so much fun. Turn 12, man. Wow. Anyway, yep. Our first time as a team, we went down to Road Atlanta. Our first year, I think it was our third race, and it was like 33 degrees and raining, snowing.
Oh,
so that was not fun. Hello, Mr. Road Atlanta. This is supposed to be hot Atlanta. Why are we snowing? But whatever. It's fine. It's fine. So, did you say you have a D series or a B series?
So what was in the car was a B16. Okay. So, the little red actually has kind of quite the racing history with 20, I think we're at 22 years that car has been tracked.
Wow.
A friend of ours who originally started tracking it, Nelson, he put the B16 swap in about 22 years ago, along with like a nice Type R trans. And his first ever event, and it was actually at Lime Rock. So last year, me tracking it at Lime Rock at about 21 years was pretty nice since it's the same motor and the head has never even been off of it. Doesn't burn oil, doesn't leak, just runs.
That's pretty amazing. And, it was nice that you were able to take your car out and celebrate because it was legal drinking age for racing. So it was good.
There you go.
Exactly. Yeah. So what got you into this crazy racing thing?
Yeah, it started probably around 15 years ago, I think. I had just been, I'd been actually with an ex car shopping and stumbled across an Evo and was like, wow, I don't know what that is, but I want to drive it. They let me drive it, and I obviously took it home the same day. And then a friend of mine saw it, and she was like, that car would be great for autocross. And I was like, I don't know what autocross is. Tell me about this. And so she explained autocross to me. I was like, oh, sure, I'll take my car out and hook it around, and instantly addicted. Spent the next probably 3-4 years just doing as much autocrossing as I could without knowing anything about cars, what I was doing, tires, suspension, motors, anything. But it really opened me up to the sort of the racing scene in general, where I met a lot of the people that I now do track events with. So yeah, the more I did autocross, the more I kept getting pushed to let's do a track day. Let's try a track day. And I was like, I don't know, maybe, I could bring my Evo out there. And everyone's like, oh God, no, don't do that. They're like, that's the worst car to start tracking in, and you're going to blow it up. And blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, it'll be fine. Blew it up in an autocross before the first track day. So,
Well, I mean, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So
yep.
it's fine. It's okay. So you said you worked your way up through autocross. Well, not up through autocross, but you went from autocross and then you started doing tracking. And did you take your HPDE? I'm going to use career because I'm very tired and can't think of a better word. Your HPD learning, did you do that with GridLife, or did you do that with a lot of organizations?
It was mostly with GridLife, but so I definitely, my first track day absolutely was with GridLife, and probably like the next 3 or 4 after that. And then I started just looking for track days around, and I live in North Carolina, so VIR is my backyard. So of course there were some events there, including Hyperfest. So started jumping in and doing some of those. And then as I got into Time Attack, there were time trials with SCCA around. So I've dabbled with, NASA and SCCA a little bit, but 90% of my track time is done with the GridLife group.
Cool. Well, I know we're kind of going out of order, but it fits here. We've done a lot of, we've tried a lot of different HPD groups, and we found some that we like and some that we, they're a track day, no E, but that's okay. But since you're kind of at certain events, you're the lead instructor and you worked your way up through the GridLife HPDE, we probably should get into that just a little bit, because GridLife HPDE is different than most of the HPDEs in that there's no real in-car instruction aspect to it. So maybe we could compare those, since you've been to both.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have to say right off the bat, because I've done both, I really do prefer GridLife structure for a few reasons. From the student aspect, sometimes it can be overwhelming having somebody sit right seat. You're a little bit nervous. You're like, they're watching everything. You're almost watching them to see what they're doing, or, they're talking to you in the middle of something that you might be focusing on. There are good instructors that I've had in the car, which are, quiet when they need to be, helpful when it's good. But I've had bad instructors who literally, one would not let me shift out of 4th gear around the entire track. And if you're familiar at all with front wheel drive, you kind of need power to get you around the corners with the diffs. So that was it was a struggle. From the instructor side of it, I really like the lack of the right seat for safety, for one. There's been a number of incidents with multiple organizations where there's been accidents, and the instructor and or student can get hurt. A lot of times there's not the same safety equipment on the passenger side for the cars as there is for the driver side. But again, it gives you like a different sense, if you're not in there trying to talk to them when everything's, super loud in a car. Even if it's a stock car, it's really loud. So trying to yell to them if you don't have comms is difficult. So what GridLife does is we do lead follow. So we'll have a few of the different instructors out taking, different groups of cars to show them the line. So you can actually be right up on a bumper and drive with them. And then we have the rest of the instructors spread out across the track at all the different turns watching. And we have radios. So we have a couple people at each different corner just to call in and say, hey, the Miata with the 14, really hit that apex. They nailed it. Make sure they know that they're on the line. Or, this Mustang is blowing the braking zone every time, make sure you let them know. So we kind of take notes for each other. That way you can debrief with your students at the end of the session. And we rotate those corners throughout the whole weekend. So, if I've got 3 different students, I'll start at corner 1 and I'll be able to tell them what I saw and then give feedback from the others. But throughout the weekend, I'll see them at each corner and say, yeah, back up your braking, or, you're late apexing. So we can give them a lot of visual feedback that way.
Right. So do you do that at all the levels or just at the entry level?
We only do that for the beginners. We have had a few intermediate students who've asked for some of this instruction at like a new track. So, they're like, hey, I'm an intermediate driver, but this track is new to me. Can you kind of watch? And that's kind of a case by case basis. If it's a fresh student, yeah, maybe we'll watch them a little bit. But so we do beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And after beginner, there's not the same level of instructor watching. Then it's just kind of class work after that for the other DEs.
Okay. And you have classes for all the levels?
We do for beginner and intermediate.
Okay.
Advanced, not so much. Again, if somebody specifically is asking, we can, but we don't do it for advanced.
Okay. And how would you you worked your way up through it? So how do you progress, or how do you get? Once I've gotten I'm a driver and I think I've gotten the beginner level down.
Yeah.
I want to go. How do you agree with me?
Yeah. So instead of like those check rides, because again, we don't do the right seat. We kind of just check watch. We say, the student has come up to us and said that they want to, be promoted to intermediate. So I need everybody to watch the next couple sessions really closely to everything they're doing. So, we'll kind of focus in on that student to really see, are they okay with traffic? Are they heads up driving? Do they understand, their car control? All of those kind of pieces. And, sometimes depending on the weekend, if we have a little bit of room in one of the other sessions, we might let them go up into intermediate for the last session on a Sunday and see how they perform kind of in there.
Uh-huh.
We do always sort of caution students that jumping to intermediate early is not always best, because intermediate is always the sketchiest group. You have people who are fresh that, might not really know what they're doing. And then you have people that are probably advanced drivers, but haven't quite made that jump. So it's all over the place.
Right. I have seen some organizations who don't do the right seat driving, but when they're doing their checkout rides, they do a lead, well, actually a follow lead, where the instructor gets to, spy on them from behind.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something we used, especially during COVID. That was, when you weren't allowed to be in the car, it was one of the ways we got around that. So
exactly. We do something similar when we go out there with our students. We'll be lead following some, and if we see somebody that has looked really good, we might get right behind them just to see how they handle a car pressuring them, right? Not that we're on top of them like we're wheel to wheel racing or anything, but if I stick with you for an entire lap and a half and I'm in your mirrors, what does that do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're not going to go drive next to somebody and close their mirror on them or anything. So
exactly.
But it could be fun, see if they respond. That's fine. So you've got your Civic, and it looked like it was going quite well. We were at NJMP, and you had a couple problems, I think, with it, or it wasn't quite running quite so well. Is everything cleared up on that, or is it a work in progress like everything else?
I mean, yes and no. I think it was pretty good. There was just some suspension tweaks. Really, at NJMP, I was trying to figure out weight issues, since it was the first time I drove that in GLTC, so it wasn't really set up. And so adding weight and then realizing I added too much and then pulling that off.
Yeah. And surviving the heat.
Oh, that was rough.
It was so hot. I think we bribed you with some ice pops. So
you did. Good. I think I showed up after each session for more of those. That
was fine. An open door to ice pops, especially when if it's where I feel like a hot dog just walking around, anybody can come by. We've got track hot ice pops, and we also have when the track goes cold, we have different ice pops. So always fantastic. Good. It's fun. So you we'll do the scholarship in a little bit, but any goals, dreams, bucket lists? Could be a track, could be a series, could be a car. Anything coming up that when you're looking back 80 years from now and you say, I did this and it was kind of cool. Anything that you're on your list?
I always try and think about this, but I never have one thing. I kind of just take opportunities and fun things as they come at me. One example, GridLife this year is doing this Elkhart special. So GLTC is essentially opening for NASCAR the weekend of the July 27th through the 29th. So I'm going to be running in GLTC for that.
Oh, so nice.
That's awesome. Pretty exciting, because it's going to be a pretty big promoted event, and a lot of eyes on everybody. So hopefully I can keep my driving clean and not embarrass the group, but
or at least not be on camera, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you end up choosing to go with the Honda that you're driving now? Is that part of the story
Yeah,
or?
I mean, I think once I drove it once, I was just like, yeah, this car fits me. It just drives well. That car, anything you've ever asked it to do, it does. Short of, a little bit more power, which is why it's being motor swapped right now.
Mhm.
So it was a great car for DE. It was a great car for time attack, but a B16 that makes 140 wheel and GLTC is just never going to be able to be really in the pack.
No.
I could keep up with them in the corners and play, but just other than that, it's not getting there. So right now, actually, in the off season, it is getting a K swap. It's the typical easy button, especially for
I was gonna say
GLTC.
that could be the first one ever.
So yeah, so that's where we are right now. Motor and trans in. All the electronics are starting to go in, so I think we're pretty close to um, getting her up and running, and then have to do all the sorting out with dyno and tuning and
Right.
fine tuning bits.
So when's the grand reveal schedule for
I'm
the new?
hoping that it'll be Watkins Glen.
Oh, okay.
So fingers crossed we can have it ready for then. Maybe find like a test session if I can before that, but that might actually be the test session.
Yeah, we understand. We had our test session. When was it? Last weekend, and car's still not running. So the test session, we didn't even go. Yeah, that happens. But we've got 2 more weeks for the race. It's fine. We'll be fine.
Yep.
How hard can it be? But so it seemed like you were well, I was going to say jack of all trades, but probably should say Jill of all trades. At the race, do you take care of all your car mechanic then, or is there people assisting you when you're at the races?
Yeah, I usually try and do as much as I can. Last year, especially, I probably was solo at almost all the events. So, bring tools and if I can fix it, I can. But, especially with GridLife, if you show up alone, you're never alone. There's
Right.
always someone there to help you, people to loan tools, people to assist. So, there's always somebody there. But, I do try and build what I can on my car so that I know what to fix at the track.
Hmm.
Mid Ohio last year, I actually snapped the upper control arm,
Whoops.
unfortunately. So I was able to get a backup set from Eric Catil, and then swapped those in the morning before the next race and was able to go racing. And had I not known how to do the suspension work myself, probably would not have made that. So
Well, knowing the race people and especially the grid life people, somebody would have jumped in. But it's always good to
yeah,
be almost self sufficient. But I know I am quite happy because I am mechanically not inclined at this point. But Vicky takes care of me, so I'm calling it good.
yeah,
So
I do have to shout out to like my friend Ethan though. He's the one that's really doing the motor swap right now. So it's actually the car is down in Florida with him, and I go down on different weekends when I can to help. But
right.
he is probably like I would call him like my best mechanic that I can rely on for anything.
Hmm.
Even when the car is with me and not with him, I just send him pictures and say, Ethan, tell me what to do. He
Yeah.
somehow knows the size bolt and where it's located. Um, yeah, so I do definitely have help when it comes to off the track big stuff like that.
That's awesome. We'll get Ethan's phone number after the podcast. But anyway, uh, no, Ethan, you'll be safe. Don't worry. Miss Vicky, who's not here just yet, she may be walking in the door as we speak, but her favorite question is always around a racing philosophy. It could be something that you think about for your own racing. It could be something that you try to expound upon to some of your students or fellow racers. Do you kind of have a racing philosophy that you try to adhere to?
I think it would probably be just have fun with
Yeah.
it, no matter what's doing. Like, yeah, all of us out there are competitive at least to some level, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a very competitive person also.
Hmm.
But just know that on the days when you're not competitive, something breaks or your car's slow or whatever else, just there's always something fun to take away from it. Just learning the line or,
Hmm.
seeing if you can keep up with that one car or actually even just watching some of your fellow racers if your car is broke. Just
Yeah.
always have fun with it is mine. Because if you stop having fun, then it's work and then you're not going to want to go race. So,
No. And sometimes you lose track of the fun part, and
yes.
it's fairly easy to do, unfortunately. But so far, I think we've only had one or two weekends where that happened for us. But usually, thinking back on it, usually it's really hot. Maybe that's part of it.
The heat
Anyway.
gets to you.
I guess it definitely doesn't help. I mean, for sure. And New Jersey was the hottest we'd ever been, but the car just broke, so we were fine. It's okay. So looking back at your racing and your HPD and even your autocross, if you were to talk to somebody, like somebody walks up to you and says, "Hey, I want to do what you're doing," like, what would you tell them are things that they should do? And what would you tell them are things that you may have done that they shouldn't do? And then, we love the ugly stuff, the story time. We need a story.
Yeah, I mean, I would tell somebody, just don't hesitate, just do it. There's a lot of people who are like, well, I'm thinking about doing it, but I don't know, or I don't know if I'd be good enough, or I don't know if my car could do it. It's like, just try it. You're not going to know until you try it, right? So just go out there and have fun.
For sure.
As far as what to do and not to do, almost everybody new thinks what they need is power. They're like, the button for me to be better is power.
My turbo.
It's not the button. The button is tires and suspension will get you so much further than a motor, than a turbo, than anything else.
And brakes.
Yes.
Brakes are good.
Oh yeah. That's actually one of the first things we tell our students when we reach out before a track day is, what brake fluid do you have and what brake pads do you have? If they do not have good fluid, we will offer to change it for them at the track, because I would rather spend, an extra 30 minutes flushing a student's system and putting some, RBF in there than watching them hit a wall because they've boiled the fluid.
Yep. It happens pretty quick especially as you get slightly better.
Yes.
It was surprising.
Yeah.
What about
ugly stories? I'm going to knock on wood here that I've been fortunate enough to not have a super ugly story yet.
That's awesome.
And I say yet because I understand in racing, it's a matter of time.
Yep.
I've had close calls, so not in my car, but in another car. I was out in Colorado. I think it was 3 years ago. It was like a year before COVID. Out there with GridLife, and I had that. Oh, I boiled the fluid and lost brakes.
Oh no!
Going into the infield. So coming off that back oval, I hit the brakes hard and had stopping for that.
That's a pretty tight turn too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Made the left-hander, and then as the infield, right as it go to hit the brakes again to turn right, pedal hit the floor, and my heart sunk. I think my heart hit the floor too. I started pumping the brakes and just everything I could. I was like, please come back, please come back. Had them enough to slow down to get around that corner, and was like, okay, this was a bit much. We're gonna do a cool down lap, come in and assess the situation.
Yes.
That wall was coming up pretty quick. So yeah. Other than that, I mean, I've had brakes, not brakes. I've had broken suspension parts on track. Again, I've been really lucky. I had a hub separate on me, but it did so right after a corner and on a straight. So again, just kind of coasted until I could get off. I had an axle nut shear off, actually at CMP. CMP and I don't always get along. I was coming down the front straight and hit the brakes, and it instantly locked up the rear, and I was sliding and couldn't figure out what was going on. Somehow also made that turn, and then just was like, okay, I have steering. It wasn't that, I have some brake. I can feel a brake pedal. And honestly, I thought I lost a brake pad or something. It was a really weird feeling. Limped it around the track, get it back to the trailer. And as we're loading it on the trailer, I'm looking at the wheel. I was like, there's no axle nut. And I look in and I was like, the wheel is not really on. It actually somehow sheared off the nose of the axle, and I don't know how the wheel stayed on. So I'm really lucky, but yeah.
Well, we've already seen a recent GLTC participant finish the race under 3 wheels, but it's not desired.
No, that's not what I was looking for.
No. When you're planning your weekend, you don't plan on being a tripod ever.
Right.
No, bad days. So let's talk a little bit about GridLife. So you are a racer, you're an instructor. Sometimes you're a chief instructor. I've seen you do class instruction. Is there anything that you let anybody else do, or are you just going to take over for Adam?
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people keep telling me, they're just training you to take over for all this stuff. I'm like, no, actually, part of I should blame Scott Giles actually for getting me into GLTC, because I used to flag for the GLTC races. So I'd, do the start and finish flags.
Mhm.
He had me split the races a lot, help get them on grid. So he really had me integrated into how it flows and how it runs. And I told him, I was like, in hindsight, you did that, so I understood what I was getting into. Yeah, so I've even helped with parking. I think the only thing I haven't helped with at this time is merch. So,
Uh-oh. Well, I'll
Yeah.
hold this till the season's almost over so they can't cross-train you anymore.
Yeah.
So that'll be fantastic. It's fun. So I'm trying to figure out if we do this. Well, let's do the scholarship first, because that kind of got you started there.
Sure.
So the scholarship award or win, I'm not quite sure how to work with that, but can you go into how that happened and what it allowed you to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So Future Frontrunners is basically what the name is of the scholarship. And this was really started by Colton Wade and Fields Engineering. And what they wanted to do was give a scholarship, an opportunity to help promote women getting into wheel-to-wheel racing. So fortunately, the last couple of years, there's been a lot bigger push to get women into driving in general, get them on track, let you see what it's all about. So Colton wanted to take that a little bit further and do specifically wheel-to-wheel racing for it. So he started the scholarship program to encourage that. I kind of found, I think award would be a better term for me in this, other than winner, because I was the first recipient, and it was sort of a test program, and they wanted this to be for somebody that had come up through GridLife, because the scholarship was kind of like, for GridLife associated. And they were like, well, Lisa's kind of like a good candidate for this. And, if it goes bad, she'll swing with it. If it goes great, then she'll benefit from it. So, let's test it out on her. So I was kind of like a guinea pig there. I was really fortunate. I mean, this program was amazing. I had talked about maybe doing, wheel to wheel for a year or so. And I was like, nah, I'm good in time attack. I can't build the car for that, or, I don't think I'd be good enough. So I had a lot of those reservations of, I don't think I can play with the big boys, or, get
Right.
there. This scholarship really pushed me to do it. The RSX I got to drive, I loved it. And I've already told him if he ever gets rid of that car, he comes to me first. I have dibs.
There you go. Right of first refusal.
Exactly. But, on top of just showing up and having a car to drive, the support that, the whole Fields engineering team gave was amazing. Rob walked me through the data each session. We did track walks. He was like, this is exactly where you want to hit it, or this is why we're telling you to go over the curve, because you see this dip. I mean, little granule stuff, which made a huge difference. And again, so I had stuff break there, and fortunately avoided anything catastrophic happening to me or the car. But, I broke an axle on one of the runs, and they were able to swap out the axle like right away for me. I actually broke the transmission in another race, and we were able to swap the transmission that night and get me back in for the next day for the next race. So yeah, they really go above and beyond for that scholarship. Just asking somebody to swap a transmission for you so you can still do your race and get, the sign off is pretty impressive in my opinion.
So this scholarship was how you got to do transition from time attack or TTs to wheel to wheel?
Yeah, so the whole purpose of the scholarship is to get your provisional license. So they bring you out there. It's just an arrive and drive. So they've got you set up with the crew, set up with the car. You do the GLTC rookie classes with Scott. Go through everything, and if you do well on the weekend and you've shown that you can actually drive, to expectations for wheel to wheel, then they'll sign off and you actually get your comp license. So I was fortunate enough to get my comp license after that weekend. And even just after the first few laps of the first race I did, I was like, oh yeah, I'm wheel to wheel is what I want to do. Screw time attack. I'm done with that. It was a whole nother level of just exhilaration, right? Like, you're not waiting to pass somebody. You get to take it. Like, you get to be in there. You get to be inside their door. You get to play with them. So that kind of ruined every other racing for me at this point.
It almost creates like a team effort to get around the track versus
it does.
It's almost like you're out with your playmates.
Yeah, absolutely. The team effort Yes, definitely. Because there was a couple friends out there who were blocking me, and it was a good experience for me to learn to not get baited into certain corners because I lost my third place position by doing that.
So let me get this straight now. Your first wheel-to-wheel race is in GLTC. Yes?
Yep.
Where were you?
Black Hawk Farms.
Wow.
And I had never driven that track before. So it was a brand new track, brand new car, brand new racing format. And it's like, all right, let's do it.
This is the deep end. I think if you
Yeah.
look under the definition, this is the deep end. Wow.
Yes.
Okay. So you got your feet wet. You learned Black Hawk Farms. You survived. You broke a couple things. That's okay. And what happened after that? What was the scholarship for? Was it just for that one race, or was it for part of the season? Or
it was just for that one race. They do offer to the scholarship recipients. They do offer a discounted sort of arrive and drive later, okay. So you can rent the car, rent the team if you want. So that is something nice that they do for all the recipients.
Excellent. That's awesome. So you got your feet wet. You dipped your toe into the very deep end of the pool. And when was your next race?
The next one was NJMP. So I went home. I called the guy who did the roll bar and was like, I need you to put a full cage in this car now because I'm going to be doing wheel to wheel. So immediately started the full cage, fire suppression system, just the minimal that I needed to be able to make that next race. And it's from there, it's just been, slippery slope.
Mm-hmm. So we were at the first independent race for you.
You were, yep.
No wonder you were running around like a crazy person that weekend.
Yes. Yeah, and I was there technically alone, so I didn't have any of my mechanic friends or partner or anything like that there. So I just showed up, and they're like, "Hey, you're going to be lead instructor on top of this because we're short." It's like, okay. They're like, we'll make sure that your car's sorted. Just park it in the garage. I was like, all right. So I mean, it was great. I had I'd come back from doing a session debrief with students, and there's somebody just checking the car, checking the brakes, checking the stuff. Like, thanks, guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're going to be in a classroom, that was a good weekend to be in a classroom because it was like 150 outside.
Oh, so. It was terrible. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was.
Was quite
I definitely used that classroom as much as possible.
Yeah. Let me tell you a story. Come with me. I need to show you on the board. Yeah, for sure. So we got Black Hawk Farms, then we went to NJMP. So how many GLTCs have you been in now? Because I see you on the broadcasts.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So I was at Mid-Ohio, Lime Rock, and then Pit Race, which was technically endurance. So that was an endurance race. It wasn't just like your standard GLTC. Am I missing one in there? Have to look back.
Okay.
Those are at least the memorable ones that I'm thinking.
Yeah, for sure. So what's your plan for this year?
As soon as the car is ready, make as many of them as I can. So like I said, I think Watkins Glen is the one I'm hoping to get the car out for the first one. After that, definitely going to do Mid-Ohio, Lime Rock. I mentioned the Elkhart Special, so I'll actually be up there for that. I haven't ever driven Road America just because it's so far, but
it is far.
I can't pass off that opportunity. There's actually in June, there's the one at Barber. So GridLife is doing an event with Jay Zilla.
Oh, wow.
Barber is another one I've never driven. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to sign up for that one. That'll be time attack, not GLTC, but it'll still be fun to go out there and throw the car around.
So what did you learn from your GLTC so far?
Watching your mirrors is something you forget to do every now and then. And especially when, I was with the B16, the car is a lot slower, right? So I expect the front of the pack is usually going to catch me. And I just remember at Mid-Ohio, coming through Thunder Valley, looking in my mirrors, I'm like, okay, there's no one in front of me. I can focus on getting through this section. And I'm coming around the last corner on the front straight, and Tomo is at my door, and I'm almost pushing him into the wall on the track. And I was like, oh my God, where did you come from? And I was like, I checked my mirrors. You were nowhere there. And you forget sometimes how fast they can come up on you. So
it's a 365-degree sport.
Yes. Yeah.
or
actually that same track event, I forget what it was. We were all under, yellow for a couple laps or something. And coming around again through Thunder Valley, coming around, waiting to get to the front straight so we can see if it's finally going to be green. And Matan just out of nowhere flies by all of us. And I'm like, what is he doing? He cannot be passing under yellow. And I look up and I can see the green. I talked to him afterwards. I was like, did you jump that or did you have comms or what was going on? He's like, oh, there's a little trick. As you're coming through Thunder Valley, if you look just right, you can see the flag station.
Yep.
So, he saw it drop before any of us.
Wow.
Yeah, I found that out the hard way one time.
Yep.
But it works. It's fine. So looking back on GLTC, you've basically got at least a good part of a season under your belt now, and you're a veteran now. You're no longer rookie status. So what do you think you could have done better?
Man, what could I have done better? I mean, I think the mirror thing for sure, just watching through. If you don't see them there, it doesn't mean they're not there. Just they're gonna be. They're gonna be soon. Other than that, I don't know. It was a little bit difficult getting as much in the pack as I wanted to, again, because of the power of the car. So I can be there in the corners, and I had a couple good battles with some of the other, quote unquote slower cars, but I didn't get as much of a chance to be in the meat of it. Lime Rock, actually, I could because it was a smaller track, so they couldn't put as much gap, and that was amazing. Just that whole weekend was just great at Lime Rock, but there was a pretty big incident going into turn 1 at the very start of one of the races, and I just remember thinking, well, I need to drive the line I can see because there's smoke, dirt, and spinning cars everywhere else. Made it out of there alive somehow and totally unscathed, and then worked on holding off a Camaro for the rest of the race.
Yeah. Oh, that Camaro. That's right. I remember. Okay.
So I'm new stepping into this. This year was your first year?
It was, yeah.
Okay. How many cars are you normally racing on track?
So it varies. Blackhawk was, I think, the smallest that we had because it wasn't a points event. So I think there was 8 or 10. I think we were 10 technically, but really only 8 of them were GLTC cars. But I mean, it goes 30s and higher depending on some of the other tracks. I think we're going to have 50 something at the Elkhart Special. Is what they said for the Road America. I think it's 56 is where they were going.
That track is huge. Yeah. Are you going to try to do Gingerman Festival or going to?
I might. So the problem with Gingerman, so I'm doing 1 lap. So I've got 1 lap of America. Hyperfest is around there as well, which I am being asked to do. And then after that is just we've got like Barber, and I want to make sure the car is sorted for Elkhart really well and somehow find time to work and do normal life in between all of that.
Gets in the way. Just gets in the way. That's okay. So speaking of 1 lap, and I get to view your taillights. Who will you be competing with in 1 lap?
Yeah, so I'm going to be running with my friend Tim White, and so our team name is Southern Fried Trasherita. If anybody has done any autocross, Tim, and Trasherita, whether you are happy about that or not. For those who don't, he literally took a garbage disposal in a 5-gallon bucket, and it is we call it margarita maker, but it's whatever alcohol and mix ends up in that at some point.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, Tim knows that, for the past couple of years, I was like, yeah, I'd like to do 1 lap. I was really thinking about doing it for this year. Actually, my boyfriend and I were thinking about just taking our daily. We have a daily Civic Si, like a 2018. We're like, yeah, we can take that. It'll be fine. And then this fall, Tim messaged me. He's like, hey, are you doing 1 lap? I was like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about signing up. He's like, oh, well, it's sold out. I was like, oh, but didn't even know it was open. Okay. Yeah. He's like, yeah, well, do you want to co-drive my Porsche? I was like, well,
there's only one answer there. I mean,
It's like, you do, and Tim knows me and knows I drive. It's like, I've only ever driven front wheel drive and all wheel drive. I've never even driven a Porsche, let alone autocross, let alone on track. But sure, let's do it.
It's just like a front wheel drive, just backwards.
Yeah. His, I actually got a couple laps at VIR a couple weekends ago. Couple of them in the dry and the others in snow, since it decided to snow on us.
Yes, it did.
So yeah, the car's pretty easy to drive. PDK in it makes it just phenomenal. It's got 2-way adjustable like MCS shocks. It's got everything you'd want to just make it do what it's supposed to do.
So you're going to be doing your first one lap, slumming it in a Porsche with.
Yeah, man, those
Oh.
heated seats are going to be rough.
Yeah. Our heated seats will be only heated if we had Taco Bell for lunch, but that's a different story.
Bill.
What? It's part of
Man
the fun.
humor. Man humor.
Well, you left me unattended. I'm sorry. It just
That's true.
happened.
I
It just
did.
happened.
I did.
So, Miss Vicky, we've got a little bit of
Yes.
time.
Well, I want to ask her a couple questions. So,
Okay.
what was some of the most now how many times have you been running around the lap doing wheel to wheel so
I
far?
think you'd think I'd know the answer to that off the top of my head, but I have to count. I think it was 4 or 5 events I did this last year.
Okay. What was your most eye-opening experience being on the track with all these people? I mean, whether it be, I don't know if Bill had asked this question, but have you run into anything that had frightened you a little bit or just kind of took you off guard or found utterly exhilarating?
It's funny with GLTC. I wouldn't say anything really frightened me. I'm a pretty aggressive personality when it comes to the track. Like I feel pretty confident with my fellow competitors that they know even more than I do, and so if I trust what they're doing and just do what I'm doing, don't just be predictable is always the biggest thing, right? So I'm assuming that they're going to be predictable. So even at Lime Rock when there was that pretty big incident at the start of the race, I was just like, be predictable. Don't start darting around. You're in a line, stick with that line and go. And everyone else around me did, so it was fine. I think the only one that maybe bite my tongue for a second was Mid Ohio. It was during the qualifying. It had rained, and if anyone's been to Mid Ohio in the rain,
yes, we
there
have.
is a rain line, and you stay on the rain line. You try and drive the dry line, and bad things happen. So actually, Fiona, who's another female GLTC driver, she, at S2000, obviously a lot more power than me. So I let her by, and I see her on the dry line going in, to turn. And I was like, I'm gonna back off a little bit because I'm not sure what's gonna happen.
Prediction and gut feeling is probably pretty smart.
Yep, exactly. So I did. I lifted, and as we go around the corner, her car just instantly snaps and comes around. And there was a point where she was facing at me and then at my door, and I was like, I need to hit the grass. I hope I can stick it. And somehow everyone made it out of there fine, no contact.
Oh, good.
But that one was probably the only one where I was like, oh god, I'm here. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, because I mean, when it comes to that, it's learning to predict. I mean, rightly so on how you watch that car go in there. It's the fact that you need to predict outcomes that could possibly happen as you're going around the track. And even if somebody hits something, you have to predict on how that's going to play out so you know where to place your car.
Yeah, you always kind of got to have an exit strategy, and right? Whether they all work out or not, but you got to have a way.
So are you loving it so far?
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. It is so addicting. I mean, yeah, the whole off-season car, I was like, I need to make this car more competitive because I want to play in the group. Like, I know I'm not going to be, up there battling with Tomo, but I want more cars around me, so I want to be more in the pack. And so I was like, you know what? All right, we're tearing the car down. We're doing everything. And, I said a slippery slope, but I was like, okay, so if I'm doing the motor, I should probably do the wing. If I do the wing, I got to do the front arrow. And if, so it's just been while we're in there, so it's taking a little bit longer to build than anticipated.
Yeah, absolutely.
The nice thing about GLTC though is that there tends to be battles at all the different relative packs. So you've got somebody to play with, which is always fun.
Yeah, even when I was slow, Middo, I was paddling with Austin. It's every race. It was just the two of us back there, but it was like corner to corner nail biter. So it was fun for us.
Yeah. Have you had the experience of having, I like to refer to it as like the ambulance opening where you can just run through? Have you had that opportunity yet?
A little bit. So that's kind of how it was at Lime Rock. So with everybody just like darting off in every direction and me being, in the back, I was able to find a path through and make it. And then again, because that's a small track with a lot of tight corners, that's where my Civic does well. It's where Little Red shines. So we were able to hold off, people for a while until, very last very last lap coming down that hill for the front straight, I was like, oh my God, like I'm actually, doing well. Like there's yeah, I can't remember now. Was it a Camaro? I think it was a Camaro that was behind me, and I had held him off for probably 4 laps at this point. And I'm like, oh, I totally got him. I got him. And then I look over and he's passing me right at the line. I was like, no, how?
No.
And I realized it was last lap. He didn't need to be set up for turn 1 again this time, so he didn't have to stay behind me. And, I found him afterwards and I was like, hey, that was a fun battle. He's like, yeah, it was. He's like, I came down that hill and I was like, well, sucks for her, and just floored it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, thanks.
So when you've been baiting, when you got baited into and then decided to not decided but end up coming in third, what is that? I mean, what does that look like?
So at Black Hawk, because that was my first ever in GLTC, so I mean, excitement, nerves, everything, everywhere. I'm battling. God, it always seems like it's the S2Ks, isn't it? So I'm in between a couple who are friends or teammates, what have you, and being held off by one, but holding off the other pretty strong. I was like, this is my corner. I'm going to take it each time. And the whole predictability thing, I was like, all right, I know exactly where the guy in front of me is braking every time. I know how much I need to brake so I don't hit him. We're doing well. And I was like, this is great. I was in third place, pretty strong, but with the other guy right on me. And so we're going into the last corner before the checker. And I was like, all right, here we go. I know exactly where he's going to brake and everything's going to be fine. Yeah, no, he broke way, way earlier. So I slammed on the brakes and darted out to get around him instead of hitting him, which was my bait and mistake. Had I just stayed behind him, stayed the inside, it would have been good. But going outside of him, I slid out, which let the guy behind me just take that inside line and go in. And yeah, just talking with everyone afterwards, they're like, yeah, that was strategic because it was going to throw you off your game because you were just in the zone. And it's not that I wasn't paying attention, but it's like I didn't expect it, right? So that way earlier braking, I was like, oh God, like his car is like right up on mine. I was like, I'm gonna move, and just chose the wrong line after that.
Oh, darn.
Still sounds like fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's an experience, right? Like I know that there's a lot more there's strategy that goes into it, right? There's strategy, but until you're in those situations, like, you know what? Well played.
That was pretty good. That was a pretty good one. I got to put that one in my arsenal.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Indeed. Miss Vicky.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
What is that?
Well, you know how we have the One Lap of America coming up?
Yeah. I'm so excited.
Yeah. It'll be even more exciting if you get to go, but we'll get you there in a year or two. Tough to get away for a week. Both of us.
Yes.
So I have an idea.
I'm
thinking of hooking up the Sentinel system in the car we take.
Really?
Because then you could watch us. You could see Tim drive well and me drive poorly.
I think that's kind of a cool idea. I really do. So, I mean, how would I do that?
Well, I mean, with the Sentinel, you throw it up on the tube of views on our channel, and you could watch remotely. And if we wanted to, we could do it as we're driving between the tracks, but we'll definitely do it on the tracks. You think that would be fun?
I think that would be a really cool idea.
The only thing that worries me is if we do it with the telemetry. You might call us up and tell us that we need to go faster than 55 when we're on the track. So,
well, how does it work?
Well, we have the little aim telemetry in the car, and then the Sentinel system has either 2 or 3 cameras, and then it puts the two together. So you get all the telemetry and all the car data and makes that part of the video. And then it puts it onto our YouTube channel, and then you could watch it, or anybody could watch it. I don't know why they would watch us, but they could.
That sounds like a really cool idea.
Yeah. It might be fun.
Might be fun.
You think you want to see some of the debacle? I mean, some of the devastating driving that we do?
I think I'd like to see you on one of the tracks at Road Atlanta or at One Lap America for sure.
Well, so we could do that for each of the tracks. And if we want to, we could do even a remote video while we're sitting in the car, driving between tracks, eating fried chicken, making fun of each other. Whatever.
Okay.
I have a feeling our food is going to be let's go with not 5-star, shall we say, for this entire week. So, but you think that would be fun? You'd want to watch that a little bit?
I think I would. Really
Okay.
would.
All right. I guess I have a new project. We're putting it in the new one lap car
I like that idea.
and streaming.
All right.
Right. You know what I think? I think our listeners could get some value out of this too. Because what they do is they go to our YouTube channel, they watch these videos that we put up, and like around sleep time when they're trying to go to bed, and they'll definitely fall asleep. It won't be any problem. It'd be like a lullaby.
They can also write in suggestions in the comment section.
Yeah.
Please comment.
Yes. Excuse me, Bill, the track went to the left, yet you turned the wheel to the right. Could you please explain? And I will come back with a reply saying it's a very advanced concept. I'm not sure you're up to it. Otherwise known as we haven't finished putting our sim together and I didn't know which way the track went. But anyway, I think that's going to be a plan, my dear.
I think it's good.
All right, very well. One Lap of America, Sentinel. Made for each other. So, Miss Vicky, we have some time.
We do have a little bit of time. Certainly. So we're going to do the thing we call the Fast and Furious Storytime questions. And they're just fun little questions on the side that to get to know you a little bit better. So I'm going to start, and it's my favorite question. Really, it's one of my yeah, it really is. What was your first car? And what was the worst car you've ever had?
Oh man, the first car I had was an '83 Chevy Cavalier, and it was also the worst car I ever had.
We get that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can imagine why. Honestly, it was also probably the worst car because in high school you're like, oh, this car is invincible, right? I can do whatever and try and jump it off these speed bumps and hit.
And there it starts.
Yeah, it was an automatic, but I thought I could do burnouts in it, so you just put it in neutral and then drop it into gear. Yeah.
Oh man, you started early, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Sometimes Miss Vicky trims me back on these questions, so I'm getting the one I have to do in first. What car would you love to switch into that you've raced against in the past, and at what track?
Oh man, that's a good one. That I've raced against. Honestly, so I've never been really into rear-wheel drive, but I'd be curious to drive an S2000 because of everybody who drives them and just to see it. Obviously, if I could get in one of the ASM ones, Andes or Tomos or something, that would be a lot of fun. But I don't think I could actually handle it. But just to see how silly it really is.
We'll just get Tomo to go to the right seat, and he'll go with you. It'll be fun.
Oh yeah, no, he doesn't know it yet, but I'm making him drive my car with me right seat once it's done being built, so I know how to drive it because I'm not going to know how to drive it.
That's a very good thing to do. I've had a couple friends who've done that, and it's very helpful. So awesome.
So, what is the car from your family that sticks out the most? And you know what? I'm going to open it up to extended family, boyfriends, whatever.
Yeah. That's an interesting one too. This might be kind of surprising because it's actually not a race car, but I'd say one of the ones that stuck out to me the most, which probably got me interested in what cars can do and modifications, was actually my ex's rock crawler. So, he had a Toyota, and this is, way back in the day, and I lived in Nevada at the time, so the Rubicon Trail was right there, and just the amazing feats that you can do to a vehicle to make it defy physics. The suspension that they do, how they it's the first time I learned about air pressure and how changing the pressure is going to change the grip of the tire and everything like that. Honestly, that's probably the most standout to me because I see a lot of race cars and I see a lot of the stuff, done over and over again. There's a lot of cool things out there and unique, but I don't know. It's just those crawlers, they defy physics. It's a whole nother level, really.
Until they don't.
Right.
And then it's bad. Okay.
Then you better have your hands in.
Exactly. So what is your favorite car movie or car from a movie of all time?
I'd be lying if I said I didn't love Evos, even though mine gives me nothing but problems. So it's not that I love the Fast and Furious movies, but that was probably one of the first times I got to like really see an Evo, and I was like, oh man, that's a good looking car. And then of course, they just make it look like the most fantastic and amazing thing in the whole world. So that's kind of the easy button there. But yeah,
I think it was a lot of the drivers that they had doing this stunts. So
absolutely.
So, what is the one thing that no one knows about you that would surprise them besides racing?
I mean, I wouldn't say nobody knows this, but I think a lot of people probably don't. So I actually, I'm a total science nerd. I actually have a PhD in cellular and molecular biology.
Ooh.
So on top of racing, I just like to tinker at a microbial level as well. Just at least cars, I can see what I'm doing.
Very cool.
All right. Well, since you're technical in nature, ready to do racing, obviously the most appropriate question to you is what is your race car number and why? And do your race cars have names?
Number. My number, what I would prefer is 131, mostly just because I like odd numbers. I have no reason other than that. It's just those are all odds. They go well together. I didn't actually get to race with that last year. I'm not sure if I'll get to race with that this year, so we'll see. And yes, absolutely all my cars have names. So the Civic, Little Red is Little Red from Nelson, the original person who had it and started doing racing. And so just everyone who's had Little Red since, that's her name. My Evo, I call Nimbus. It's a white Evo and cloud, and it's just always just thought it was kind of like a cool name for it. I have a truck. My truck is named Petrie. Not F the dish, not a science nerd one there. It's actually Petrie, the land before time, because that little guy just always kept going no matter what, and how my truck is. So, and then the daily Civic that I have, so that's 2018. That's BBC. That's a big black Civic. So they've all got their names. Yeah, well, when we brought it home and parked it next to Little Red and just realized how big the Civic had gotten from 95 to 2018. Yeah.
Indeed.
Do you tell yourself, or do you have like conversations with yourself as you're driving around the track to keep yourself focused and what's happening?
Absolutely. And often out loud, which, I realize the GoPros and stuff pick up.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah, there's definitely times where I'm like, come on, you can do it. Like, just, or I'm like, just keep racing. Or actually at Black Hawk, so we didn't have comms in the helmets, but we needed to keep communication. So we just had like my iPhone in the pocket with just headphones, so they could hear everything, right? It's live. They said it was terrifying because you can hear all the noises the car makes, but not know why it's making those noises. So I kind of forgot I was on open mic a few times, and the same person that baited me in that last corner another time was blocking me down the front straight. And Black Hawk is pretty narrow, and when I say this car had a big wing on it, it was huge. I literally couldn't really get by without going in the dirt, being on my provisional, that trying to keep the racing clean. So I just he's blocking me as we're going down the front street, and I'm like, son of a, and just yelling, and just hear laughing coming over the headphones. It's like, oh yeah, I'm on an open mic.
That'll do it. So since you're an instructor and you've done the HPDE thing and you've got a science background, what areas of your driving or racing are you working on this off season for next year, or this year now, I guess?
Oh yeah. I mean, learning the new car setup for one, that much more power and just all the extra mechanical grip I'm going to have from, the aero, it's going to be totally different. So just relearning the car is going to be probably the main goal, and making sure that I can be consistent with it and start to get everything I can out of it. I know I'm not going to get everything I can out of it first season with that car, but just making sure that I can be consistent, working up to pace, and, not break things.
Always good not to break things.
Let me see. I really can't think of anything else, honey.
Oh, well, I've got one.
Okay, I'll let you go. How about you round it out?
And you hate it.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, very well. So we're going to win the lottery. And with the lottery, we're going to buy a desert island, and on our island we're going to build a track, and it'll be one will be a road course and one will be a dirt track. And we want to say thank you to everybody who comes onto our podcast by making sure we have the car that they want there. So what would the 5 cars that we need to have ready and prepared for you when you come to our desert island?
Man. So I want a surprise car, something that I have no idea that I would just like jump in. It could
We've got those. That's easy.
Right hand, could be anything. Like I said, even though it's the bane of my existence at the same time, I love the Evo. So one of every Evo, but if I have to pick, I'd like to maybe do an 8 and a 10.
Okay.
They're very, very different.
Okay.
The Civic, because that's just where my heart is at the time. And then it's really hard to say. Something, when I say, I want something random, it's just because my experience so far has really just been driving the Civic mostly, driving the Evo a little bit, now the Porsche some. So I don't know what I'm missing out because I haven't had a chance to drive them all, right? I could say something, like a Lamborghini or, something exotic like McLaren's, whatever. But yeah, they're fun because they're fast. But I mean, you could have just as much fun in a Fit, right? We see that now with all the Sunday Cup stuff. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know, surprises. Like I just want to be thrown in something and see if I can drive it.
All right, very well. We can surprise you. We've got some. What are the notable cars that we've had on our island, my dear?
Taco truck.
I know Jennifer wants to bring a taco truck, so you'll be well fed.
That'll just make everybody happy.
Yeah, that's right.
Nothing wrong with a
taco
truck.
I'm glad you're including a dirt course too, because I did actually get to do some rally last year, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, was it good? Was it really good?
Yeah, it was. I don't know why my friends put me in their cars, but they let me drive them sometimes. So my buddy Ethan, who does the most of the builds for my car, he was like, yeah, so I've got this like rally Honda. We're just gonna go out and play for the day, and it'll be fun. I was like, sweet. Never done rally before. Never used a handbrake before. Launched it off a jump. I think I broke the splitter off, and I was like, why do you have a splitter on a rally car? But it's fine.
Got to make sure the dirt stays where it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, very well. Well, we've got a ton more stupid, silly, inane Fast and Furious story time, non-trademark, non-licensed from the movie questions, but we're going to save it because we're going to bother you again. Between One Lap and GridLife, you're stuck with us. You're stuck with us.
I'll be around. You can find me at the track.
It's not hard.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
We know the secret to getting you nearby is to have Freezie Pops, so life is good. We got this.
You give me food, I'm there.
Well,
she's if it's free, it's me, girl.
Yes. Oh. Yeah, as part of getting the PhD is being a grad student, and part of being a grad student is free food is life, and I've never grown out of that.
Indeed, and as we often get into the stories when we talk about our racing team, our paddock game and our food game is much better than our driving game. So take advantage of what we're good at and stop by anytime.
Excellent.
So if people want to follow along and see what you're up to and keep track of this, how would they do that?
Yeah, so for the One Lap stuff, we actually have a page. It's the Southern Fried Trasherita, and I'll send you a link to this if you want to put it in there.
Great. It'll be on the episode notes for anybody.
Yeah. And then, I'm terrible at doing social media. I should be better, but I'm just bad at it. But I can give you a YouTube link because I do post all my race videos and things like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think the next time I will see you is at One Lap, and it won't be for very long because I will be in a Honda Fit, and you are not in a Honda Fit, so you'll be saying goodbye to me very early and very often. So, but until then, we will bother you at One Lap. And is the Trasherita going to be making it to One Lap, or is that a
the room in the Porsche just does not allow?
No.
Actually. We're struggling right now with how to fit everything in there and trying to not take a trailer. So
yeah, we're doing the same because we just recently changed which car we're going to bring, and this one has a cage, so it's a lot harder. We had a whole lot more room when the Fit didn't have a cage, but now it does. So we'll figure it out. Well, I will see you at Tire Rack in a couple weeks. It doesn't seem like it's only 4 weeks away. No pressure.
Oh, man.
No pressure.
I'm excited.
It'll be fun. It'll be great. And I just want you to know, I don't care what you do. I don't care how hard you try. You are not going to steal last place from us. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Noted.
Very well. Well, it's nice catching up with you, and we will bother you again, miss. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both.